Imagine a world where the fate of an entire alien species rests in the hands of one human. Deep in a shadowy, forbidden lab, a mysterious alien girl is trapped inside a cage, her eyes glowing with secrets no one has ever seen. Only one human man holds the key to her freedom, but can he survive the dangers that guard her? And will he uncover the truth behind her otherworldly powers before it's too late? It was a quiet night when David, an ordinary man with an ordinary life, found himself walking through the outskirts of the city. The moon hung low in the sky, casting silver light on the empty streets. He had no idea that tonight his life would change forever. David had always been curious about strange sounds coming from the abandoned research facility on the edge of town, but he never dared to explore it until now. As he approached the facility, he noticed a faint glow coming from one of the upper floors. It was unlike any light he had ever seen, soft, almost alive, and pulsating as if it had a heartbeat. David's heart raced. Something inside told him that this glow was important, that it was calling him for a reason he could not yet understand. He cautiously stepped closer, avoiding broken glass and rusty fences that crunched under his feet. Every sound seemed louder in the still night air, and every shadow felt like it was watching him. He finally reached a tall metal door that appeared to lead into the heart of the building. The glow was brighter now, shining through cracks in the walls. David hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath. Then, with a mixture of fear and determination, he pushed the door open. Inside, the room was dimly lit, filled with strange machinery and wires that coiled across the floor like giant snakes. At the center of the room, he saw a large cage, unlike any cage he had ever seen. It was made of a shimmering material that seemed both solid and liquid at the same time. Inside the cage, a girl floated slightly above the floor. Her skin had a faint silver glow, and her large almond-shaped eyes sparkled like distant stars. Her hair moved, as if it were underwater, flowing with a life of its own. David could hardly believe what he was seeing. She was not like any human he had ever met. There was a delicate aura of sadness and fear around her, but also something powerful, something that made it clear she was no ordinary being. David took a cautious step closer. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice echoing slightly in the empty room. The girl's eyes widened, and she tilted her head, studying him as if she could see straight into his thoughts. For a moment, time seemed to stop. David felt an invisible connection, a pull that he could not explain. Somehow she knew he was the only one who could help her, but freeing her would not be simple. The cage was protected by strange energy fields that made the air hum with power. Machines around the room monitored every movement, ready to trigger alarms or worse, traps that David could not even imagine. And yet he knew he had to try. The pull between them was too strong to ignore. Somewhere deep inside, David understood that helping her was no longer a choice, it was a destiny. As he studied the cage, he noticed a small panel with symbols he didn't recognize. They glowed faintly, as if responding to the girl's presence. David reached out with trembling hands, unsure if touching it would release her or trigger something dangerous. But he had no time to hesitate. The girl's eyes locked onto his, silently begging him to act. With courage he didn't know he had, David pressed the panel. In that moment, the room seemed to shift. A low hum filled the air, and the cage's shimmering bars began to ripple. The girl's eyes glowed brighter, reflecting hope and fear all at once. David realized that whatever he was about to do, there was no turning back. Tonight, his ordinary life would end, and a new, extraordinary journey would begin. David's heart pounded as the cage's shimmering bars began to ripple, responding to his touch. The alien girl's eyes glowed brighter, almost as if she were communicating with him without words. He knew that whatever powers kept her trapped were not ordinary. This was beyond anything he had ever faced. And yet, a strange determination coursed through him. He had come this far, turning back was not an option. As he studied the small panel again, he noticed more symbols lighting up one by one. They formed a pattern, almost like a code. David didn't know the language, but instinct told him that if he could follow it correctly, the cage might open. He hesitated, aware that a single mistake could trigger a trap, but he forced himself to focus. He took a deep breath, counting silently, and pressed the symbols in what felt like the right sequence. Suddenly the ground shook slightly, and a low hum filled the room, vibrating through his chest. Sparks flew from the surrounding machinery, and lights flickered as if the entire facility had come alive. The alien girl floated higher, her hair swirling around her head like a silver halo. She let out a soft sound, something between a whisper and a melody. It was beautiful, but it carried a warning. David knew he had to act fast. Then, the first barrier struck. A wall of energy shot up from the floor, forming a shimmering shield in front of the cage. David froze, realizing this was no ordinary trap. Moving as a strange light, moving as if it could sense his intentions. He tried to step back, but the floor beneath him had sensors, and a sudden alarm began to blare. Red lights flashed, casting long, jagged shadows across the room. The girl looked at him, her eyes wide with fear, but also with hope. She was relying on him. David's mind raced. He remembered reading about experimental energy grids in science journals years ago. Maybe he could disrupt it by touching the panel again, but he had no guarantee. His fingers trembled as he pressed a sequence of symbols that glowed a soft blue. The energy shield flickered, then split into a series of smaller beams. David dodged one narrowly, feeling a wave of heat brush past him. He could hear the faint hum of the cage intensifying, reacting to the alien girl's presence. She reached out her hand toward him, her fingers glowing slightly. David realized that she was guiding him, showing him which symbols to press next. They were connected now, mind to mind, action to action. He pressed faster, feeling the rhythm of her energy syncing with his heartbeat. The smaller beams of energy bent and twisted, forming openings, but the pressure was immense. Every second felt like a minute, every breath like a challenge. Finally, with one last press, the energy shield collapsed with a loud electric crack. Sparks flew everywhere, and the machinery groaned as if in pain. The alien girl floated down, closer to him, her glow now calmer and warmer. David felt a wave of relief, but also new questions. What exactly was she? Where had she come from? And most importantly, what danger still awaited if he freed her completely? As he reached toward the cage, he knew that this was just the beginning. The first challenge was over, but the journey to truly liberate her hand, to survive whatever came next, had only just begun. Together, human and alien, they were about to face trials that neither could have imagined. And in the silence that followed, David could feel the weight of destiny pressing down, knowing that his choices tonight would echo far beyond this dark, mysterious facility. The moment the energy shield fell, the alien girl floated closer to David, her luminous eyes locked onto his. For the first time, he could see a flicker of something human in her gaze, a mix of fear, curiosity, and a longing for freedom. He held out his hand slowly, unsure if she would trust him. To his surprise, she reached out too, her fingers barely grazing his. The touch was electric, sending shivers down his spine. It wasn't just a physical connection. It was as if their minds were brushing against each other, sharing emotions, thoughts, and an unspoken understanding. David took a cautious step back, studying her more closely. Her skin shimmered under the dim light of the facility, almost like liquid silver, and her hair floated as if in water, swaying with her movements. He could see the intricate patterns along her arms, delicate lines that glowed softly, pulsating in rhythm with her heartbeat. She seemed fragile, yet there was an undeniable strength radiating from her. Every instinct in David's body told him that she was extraordinary, far beyond anything the world had ever known. She tilted her head, studying him intently, and a soft, melodic hum escaped her lips. David realized that this sound wasn't random, it was communicating, trying to convey meaning. Listened carefully, attempting to interpret the patterns in her voice. Slowly, the hum grew steadier, almost like a rhythm he could follow. He found himself responding with small gestures, raising his hand, pointing, nodding, hoping she would understand that he meant no harm. And to his relief, she did. Her eyes sparkled brighter, a silent acknowledgement that their connection was growing stronger. As they stood there, a subtle warmth began to fill the room. It wasn't just the glow from the alien girl, it was the energy between them, a fragile bond forming despite the chaos around them. David realized something important. Freeing her from the cage was only the first step. If they were to survive what lay ahead, they needed to trust each other completely. She might not speak his language, and he could barely understand hers. But their silent communication was already stronger than words. David noticed that the symbols on the panel were still glowing faintly. It seemed that the cage, or the facility itself, was responding to their connection. He touched one of the symbols gently, and the alien girl's hand moved over his, guiding him to press the right sequence. Together, they activated a mechanism he couldn't comprehend, and the shimmering bars of the cage dissolved into thin streaks of light. The girl floated freely for the first time, hovering just above the floor, her eyes never leaving his. A sudden noise from the facility startled them, both a metallic clang echoing from the far end of the room. David realized that their actions had not gone unnoticed. Someone, or something, was monitoring the cage, and the facility's alarms could activate at any moment. He looked at the alien girl and saw determination in her eyes. Despite her fear, she was ready to move forward with him. The bond they had just formed had already turned into an unspoken promise. They would face whatever dangers lay ahead together. David took a deep breath, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. He had freed her, but the questions remained. Who had trapped her here? Why was she alone in a human facility? And what powers did she possess that made her so valuable and so vulnerable? One thing was certain: their journey was only beginning. The silent connection between them was fragile, but it was strong enough to guide them through the unknown. Together, human and alien, they were stepping into a world filled with danger, mystery, and a chance to change everything. David and the alien girl moved cautiously toward the exit of the facility. The cage was gone, but the room still pulsed with the faint hum of machinery. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound amplified in the silence. David kept one hand slightly extended toward her, sensing that the smallest touch could reassure her, warn her of danger. She floated slightly ahead, her glowing eyes scanning the room, ready to react to any threat. They reached the hallway, dimly lit by flickering lights, when a low rumble echoed through the building. David froze. The facility was enormous, filled with corridors, locked doors, and hidden dangers. He realized they weren't just dealing with a simple cage. They were inside a lab built for secrecy and control, designed to contain beings like her. Somewhere in the shadows, sensors and cameras were likely tracking every step. The alien girl looked at him, her eyes narrowing. She extended a hand, and a soft pulse of energy shot from her fingertips, illuminating the symbols on the walls. David realized she was revealing hidden doors, or passages, secret escape routes, designed for someone who understood her kind. He followed her carefully, stepping lightly over debris and broken tiles. Every moment felt tense, as if the building itself was aware of their plan. Suddenly, a metallic door slammed shut behind them with a deafening clang. David spun around, heart racing. The facility was responding faster than he had anticipated. A mechanical voice echoed faintly through the halls, repeating a series of numbers and symbols he didn't understand. The alien girl shivered slightly, and David knew they had triggered a security system. He glanced at her glowing eyes. She seemed to be calculating something, plotting the next move. They reached a large chamber filled with machinery that looked like it belonged to another world. Cables ran across the floor like snakes, and panels with blinking lights created a maze of obstacles. David could feel the tension in the air. The slightest misstep could set off alarms, or worse, trap them permanently. The alien girl hovered just above the floor, her energy radiating softly, as if preparing for what was ahead. David swallowed his fear and took a step forward. He realized that he had to trust her completely. She led him to a corner of the room, where a small, circular hatch was partially hidden behind a pile of metal debris. She gestured, and he understood. This was their way out. But as he moved to open it, a sudden surge of energy coursed through the room, causing sparks to fly from the nearby machinery. A red light flashed, and the humming grew louder, vibrating through the floor and walls. The alien girl reacted instantly, extending her hand and sending a wave of energy toward the nearest panel. Sparks danced in the air, and for a moment the energy seemed to freeze. David grabbed the hatch, pulling it open with all his strength. They crawled inside, hearts pounding, aware that every second counted. The hatch led to a narrow tunnel, dark and silent except for the soft hum of her energy. As they moved through the tunnel, David realized something important. The facility was not just a prison, it was a test. Every obstacle, every trap, was designed to challenge them, to see if they could work together. The alien girl's powers were incredible, but without his human intuition and courage, they might never succeed. Together, they formed a team, blending strength, intelligence, and trust in a way that neither could have imagined alone. At the end of the tunnel, they reached another door. Beyond it, faint moonlight spilled through cracks in the walls. Freedom was close, yet David knew this was only the beginning. The outside world might hold more dangers than the facility ever could, and someone or something would be waiting for them. But for now, they had overcome the first obstacle, and their bond had grown stronger. Together, they were ready to face the unknown. David and the alien girl emerged from the narrow tunnel into the cool night air. The moon hung high, casting a silver glow across the abandoned facility's roof. For the first time, they could breathe without the hum of machinery or the oppressive weight of confinement. But freedom felt fragile. Every shadow seemed alive, every rustle of leaves a potential threat. David knew their escape was only the beginning. The alien girl hovered slightly above the ground, her energy faintly illuminating the dark path ahead. David followed carefully, trying to match her cautious movements. He glanced back at the facility. Its towering walls loomed ominously, like a beast guarding secrets. Inside, alarms might have already been triggered, and security forces or automated defenses could be moving toward them at any moment. Every step they took was a calculated risk. They made their way to a narrow alley behind the facility, a path cluttered with debris and rusted equipment. The alien girl paused, tilting her head as if listening to sounds beyond human perception. Her eyes glowed softly, guiding David toward a safer route. Realized her senses were far sharper than his own. She could detect danger before it even appeared. Without her guidance, he would have been lost in the labyrinthian backstreets surrounding the facility. Suddenly, a faint worry noise reached David's ears. He froze. "Someone's coming," he whispered, his voice trembling slightly. The alien girl's energy flared, casting eerie shadows on the walls. They ducked behind a pile of old crates, holding their breaths as the sound grew louder. A group of drones, their red lights cutting through the night, hovered silently above the alley. The facility's defenses had been activated, and now they were being hunted. David's mind raced. They needed a plan, and fast. The alien girl reached out, touching his arm gently. A wave of warmth and energy passed through him. He suddenly understood her thought. They could disrupt the drones with her power, but only if he acted as the stabilizer. Together, they formed a human-alien tandem, combining intuition with energy. David pointed toward a narrow side street, and she unleashed a pulse of shimmering light. The drones wavered, their sensors disrupted, giving them just enough time to slip past unnoticed. As they ran through the shadows, David felt a surge of adrenaline. His heart pounded, yet he was strangely calm. The alien girl floated beside him, glowing softly, guiding them with precision. Every corner they turned, every obstacle they navigated, tested their teamwork. They learned quickly that escaping the facility was not just about speed, it was about understanding each other's abilities, anticipating threats, and moving as one. They finally reached a wide street that led away from the industrial complex. The city's lights shimmered in the distance, a symbol of normal life that seemed both inviting and alien. For a moment, David allowed himself a glance at the alien girl. She met his eyes, and in that silent gaze he saw gratitude, trust, and the beginning of a bond that would define their journey. They had survived the facility in the first pursuit, but the night was far from over. Somewhere out there, their pursuers would regroup. Someone or something wanted her contained, controlled, or perhaps destroyed. David understood the stakes now. Their escape had not gone unnoticed. The alien girl's eyes glimmered with determination, reflecting his own. Together, they would face whatever came next, venturing into a world that neither fully understood but both were determined to survive. As they disappeared into the night, the wind carried a soft, hummed alien girl's voice, like a promise. Their journey had only begun, and every step forward would bring new dangers, discoveries, and challenges. Yet, for the first time, David felt hope. Hope that they could survive. Hope that she could be free. And hope that together, they could change the fate that the world had set before them. David and the alien girl slipped away from the shadows of the facility and into the quiet streets of the city. Everything around them felt ordinary, yet for her, every sight, sound, and smell was completely new. The faint hum of cars, the flicker of streetlights, and the distant chatter of people created a world she had never known. Her large eyes widened as she absorbed it all, glowing softly with awe and curiosity. David watched her closely, amazed at how she observed every detail. She paused at a neon sign flickering above a shop window, tilting her head as if studying the strange letters. A small bird chirped nearby, and she gasped softly, pointing toward it. David smiled. "Yeah, it's a bird," he said gently. She repeated the word in a melodic tone, the sound almost musical to his ears. It was as if she were learning a language by instinct, absorbing every nuance of human behavior. As they moved through the streets, David realized that her unfamiliarity made her vulnerable. She didn't know which places were safe or which people could be dangerous. Every stranger's glance felt amplified in her perception, and David instinctively shielded her, keeping her close. "Don't worry," he said softly. "I've got you." She reached out her hand, and he felt a small pulse of energy connect with him, a silent acknowledgement of trust. They passed a crowded intersection, and the alien girl paused again, fascinated by the flashing lights of a bus. She reached out as if to touch it, but David quickly held her back. "Careful," he warned, aware that her curiosity could put them in danger. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes questioning. And he realized that teaching her about the human world would be a delicate balance, allowing her to explore while keeping her safe. David led her to a quiet park nearby, where the moonlight reflected off the surface of a small pond. She knelt beside the water, touching it with her fingers. Ripples spread outward, shimmering in the moonlight. She laughed a sound like a gentle melody, and David felt a warmth in his chest he hadn't felt before. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he said, watching her fascination. She nodded, her eyes reflecting a mix of wonder and something deeper, something he couldn't quite name. As they rested on a bench, David tried to gauge her understanding of the human world. She had no words for the things around her, but her gestures and expressions spoke volumes. She pointed to the moon and made a sound that seemed like a question. David thought for a moment. "That's the moon," he said slowly. "It's part of your sky, just like ours." She repeated the word softly, as if tasting it, and smiled. In that simple exchange, he realized how extraordinary this experience was, not just for her, but for him as well. The night was calm, but David knew they couldn't stay long. Whoever had trapped her would not give up easily. The city offered safety for a time, but it was only a temporary haven. Still, in these first moments of freedom, a bond formed between them, connection built on trust, curiosity, and the shared thrill of stepping into a world neither fully understood. David looked at her glowing face and felt a sense of responsibility heavier than anything he had known. She was not just a mystery to solve. She was a life to protect, a companion to guide, and perhaps even a friend who could change his life forever. As they prepared to leave the park and continue their journey, the alien girl glanced at him, her eyes glowing faintly. David met her gaze, understanding without words that their adventure was only beginning. Together, they would navigate a world full of unknown dangers, unearthly powers, and secrets that neither could have imagined. And as they stepped into the deeper darkness of the city, the bond between human and alien grew stronger, ready to face whatever lay ahead. David and the alien girl had only just begun to explore the human world when danger found them. As they navigated the quiet streets, the soft hum of her energy contrasted sharply with the distant sounds of the city, but something felt off. Shadows moved differently tonight, and the air was thick with a tension that made David's instincts scream. Knew they weren't safe not yet. A sudden noise, a metallic scraping sound, echoed from behind a dark alley. David froze. He motioned for the alien girl to stay close. Her eyes glowed brighter, sensing the unseen threat before him. "Someone's there," he whispered, trying to remain calm. She tilted her head, scanning the area with a mixture of curiosity and caution. David could tell that she was trying to understand, to gauge whether this danger was a friend or foe. From the shadows emerged a figure, tall and cloaked, moving with precision and purpose. David's heart raced. This was no ordinary person. There was something unnatural about the way they approached. The alien girl stepped slightly forward, her hands glowing faintly, as if readying herself to defend. David realized she was stronger than she appeared. Neither of them could predict the abilities of whoever or whatever was confronting them. "Step aside," the figure said, voice cold and mechanical. David felt a shiver run down his spine. The words themselves carried a threat, an authority that was chilling. David raised a hand to protect the girl, even though he felt small and powerless. She hovered closer to him, her energy pulsing rapidly, almost as if warning him that she could act, but only if necessary. The figure advanced, and with it came the faint sound of a device, a weapon of some kind. David guessed, capable of capturing or harming the alien girl. Time slowed in his mind. He could see her weighing her options, her glowing eyes darting from him to the threat, calculating the perfect response. David realized that this confrontation was a test not just of her power, but of their teamwork. He had to act decisively. David whispered, "Follow my lead." The alien girl responded immediately, her energy syncing with his heartbeat. He lunged forward, grabbing a loose piece of metal from the ground and swinging it toward the figure. The figure dodged with inhuman speed, but the sudden motion startled it. The alien girl reacted instantly, sending a wave of luminous energy that created a barrier between them and the threat. Sparks flew, and the street flickered with shadows as the battle unfolded in silence and speed. David felt a surge of adrenaline. He'd never faced anything like this. Yet, despite the danger, he sensed a rhythm in their actions, their unspoken communication and trust in one another. She deflected attacks, he created openings, and together they managed to push the figure back, forcing it into retreat. The streets fell silent once more, but David knew it was only temporary. Whoever or whatever was pursuing them would return more prepared and relentless. The alien girl floated close, her glowing eyes meeting his. He could see the mixture of relief and anticipation in her gaze. They had survived their first real threat in the human world, but the challenge had only begun. David understood that danger lurked everywhere, and they had to be ready for the next encounter. Yet, despite the fear and tension, he felt a growing sense of courage. Together, human and alien, they were learning to face the unknown, and each battle brought them closer to understanding the mysterious bond that tied them together. After their first narrow escape, David and the alien girl moved cautiously through the city streets. Her glowing presence illuminated the dark corners, casting soft reflections on the pavement. Every step she took was filled with curiosity, yet she remained cautious. David couldn't help but marvel at her fascination with everything around her: lights, buildings, even the simple flicker of a neon sign seemed to captivate her. As they passed a small cafe, they noticed a few late-night workers cleaning up tables and sweeping the floors. The alien girl tilted her head, observing them closely. She reached out her hand toward a cleaning tool lying on the ground, and it vibrated slightly in response to her touch. David grabbed her hand quickly. "Careful," he whispered, realizing that her mere presence could trigger unexpected reactions in objects or people. One of the cafe workers looked up, squinting in confusion at the glowing figure moving beside David. Sir? Are you okay?" he asked hesitantly. David gave a reassuring smile. "Yeah, just helping a friend." The worker nodded slowly, though he clearly had no idea what he was witnessing. The alien girl studied the man, mimicking his gestures and expressions as if trying to learn how humans interacted. She reached toward the man again, curious about his uniform and the small tools he carried. David gently held her back. They continued down the street, and David realized that the alien girl was absorbing everything. Every sound, movement, and expression seemed to be cataloged in her mind. She was learning quickly, not just about humans, but about human behavior, culture, and society. He watched as she touched a lamppost, tilted her head at the sound of passing cars, and smiled softly at the faint glow of streetlights. It was innocent and magical at the same time. Suddenly, a stray cat darted across their path. The alien girl's eyes widened, and she bent down slightly, reaching out her glowing hand toward the animal. The cat froze for a moment, sensing the energy around her, then ran away with a startled hiss. David laughed quietly, though he was also relieved the situation hadn't escalated. "It's okay," he whispered, guiding her forward. "Not everything is dangerous. Some things are just alive." As they walked, the alien girl's curiosity grew bolder. She gestured at passing street signs, moving vehicles, and even the illuminated windows of nearby apartments. David tried to explain some things, using simple words and gestures. But he quickly realized that this was a process of discovery for both of them. He was teaching her about the human world, and at the same time he was learning to see it through her eyes, a world of wonder, danger, and unending possibility. They paused at a small park bench under a street lamp. The alien girl reached out to touch the wooden surface, her fingers leaving a faint shimmer that quickly faded. David marveled at the delicate beauty of her energy and the way it interacted with the world around her. He felt a growing sense of responsibility and awe. Not only did he need to keep her safe, but he also had to guide her gently through a world that could be cruel and confusing. As they rested briefly, David noticed a group of teenagers walking nearby. They paused, whispering and pointing at the faint glow surrounding the alien girl. David's instincts screamed at him to move quickly, but the alien girl tilted her head at them curiously, as if intrigued by their behavior. He took her hand and gently led her down another street, keeping their presence subtle and avoiding unwanted attention. That night, David understood something crucial. The human world was both beautiful and dangerous, full of wonder and peril in equal measure, and the alien girl, though powerful, was still learning to navigate it. Their journey had only begun, but every encounter, whether with humans, animals, or objects, was shaping their understanding of each other and the world they now shared. Together, they would continue to explore, to learn, and to face the unknown, one step at a time. David and the alien girl had only just begun to navigate the city when an ominous hum filled the air. It was faint at first, almost unnoticeable, but it grew louder with every step they took. David's instincts screamed danger. He glanced at the alien girl. Her glowing eyes narrowed, and she hovered slightly above the ground, sensing the approaching threat. The facility's forces had not given up, and now they were closing in. From the shadows of a narrow street, mechanical drones emerged, their red lights cutting through the night like sharp blades. They moved quickly, scanning every corner, every shadow. David realized immediately that the chase was inevitable. "We have to run," he whispered, grabbing her hand. She responded instantly, energy pulsing around her, ready to act. Together, they darted down the alleyways, weaving through dumpsters, broken crates, and abandoned vehicles. The drones were relentless, moving faster than anything David had ever seen. Each time he thought they had created enough distance, the machines adjusted their path, blocking their escape routes. David's heart raced, but he knew that panicking would get them caught. He had to stay calm, think strategically, and trust the alien girl's instincts. She guided him, sensing the drone's movements with an almost supernatural precision. They turned down another alley, only to encounter a dead end. David's stomach dropped. There was nowhere to go, unless they took a daring leap onto the roof of a nearby building. Without hesitation, the alien girl floated upward, motioning for him to follow. Hesitated for a fraction of a second, then climbed carefully, feeling her energy radiate reassurance. Together, they reached the rooftop, the city stretching out below them in a patchwork of lights and shadows. The drones adjusted, firing beams of energy that cut through the air just inches behind them. David dodged instinctively, feeling the heat of the blasts on his back. The alien girl responded by creating a shimmering barrier around them, deflecting the attacks and giving them precious seconds to move forward. They sprinted across the rooftops, leaping from building to building, their movements in perfect sync, almost as if they had done this countless times before. David realized something remarkable. Despite the danger, they had developed an unspoken rhythm. Her energy guided his steps, and his intuition complemented her power. They were a team, facing odds that no ordinary human or alien could survive alone. The thrill of the chase pushed David to heights he had never imagined, both physically and mentally. He felt alive, alert, and deeply connected to the mysterious being beside him. Suddenly, the rooftop path ended at the edge of a tall building. Below lay the dark streets, empty except for the occasional flickering streetlight. The alien girl hovered, then gestured toward a smaller building nearby with a gap between them. David's stomach tightened at the sight. It was a long jump, but there was no other option. Taking a deep breath, he ran and leaped, landing awkwardly but safely on the next rooftop. She followed effortlessly, gliding through the air with grace and precision. Behind them, the drones continued their pursuit, but the alien girl unleashed a pulse of energy that sent the machines skidding off course. Sparks flew, and the hum of the drones faltered momentarily. giving them just enough distance to disappear into the twisting alleys below. David's chest heaved as he slowed, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. She hovered beside him, her glow softening, a silent acknowledgement of their narrow escape. In that moment, David understood the stakes more clearly than ever. The facility and whoever controlled it would stop at nothing to recapture her. But he also realized something powerful. Together, they could survive anything. The city, with all its dangers and mysteries, was now their arena. And as the night carried on, the first major chase had not only tested their courage, but also solidified the bond between human and Lena bond that would define every challenge to come. After narrowly escaping the relentless drones, David and the alien girl ducked into a small abandoned warehouse at the edge of the city. The structure was old and worn, with broken windows and rusted metal walls, but it offered a temporary sanctuary. The air inside was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of dust and metal. For the first time in hours, they could pause and catch their breath. The alien girl hovered near the center of the room, her glow dimming slightly as she observed their surroundings. David noticed her curiosity never faded, even in moments of danger. She tilted her head at a broken chair, touched a cracked wall, and even seemed fascinated by the way light filtered through a broken window. Despite the tension and threat, there was something almost childlike in her wonder, a stark contrast to the dangerous world outside. David took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him. "We can rest here for a little while," he said softly, "but we need a plan. They'll be looking for us, and sooner or later they'll find a way in." The alien girl floated closer, her glowing eyes meeting his. Without words, she communicated a shared understanding they needed strategy and fast. David began inspecting the warehouse, searching for anything useful. Old crates, discarded machinery, and loose boards could be repurposed for defense or hiding. He realized that, while the alien girl had extraordinary powers, she relied on him for planning, intuition, and knowledge of human systems. They were learning to complement each other, combining strengths to survive in an unfamiliar world. He pulled out a notebook from his backpack, something he had carried for years without much use. Scribbling a rough map of the city and potential escape routes, he tried to anticipate where their pursuers might come from. He noted every alleyway, fire escape, and hidden path that could help them move unnoticed. The alien girl watched intently, occasionally hovering over the map, her fingers brushing the lines as if absorbing the information instantly. Hours passed as they prepared. David fashioned makeshift barriers from old crates and boards, creating a small fortified area in one corner of the warehouse. The alien girl tested the limits of her energy, discovering ways to manipulate light and minor objects without exhausting herself. She floated effortlessly above the floor, practicing bursts of energy to ward off any intruders. Together, they created a combination of human ingenuity and alien power that could protect them, at least temporarily. During their planning, David asked a simple question, hoping for a hint of insight. "Where did you come from? Why were you trapped?" The alien girl's eyes flickered, and she let out a soft hum, the sound almost musical. While he couldn't understand the words fully, the emotion was clear fear, longing, and the weight of secrets too dangerous to reveal yet. David realized that the answers would come in time, but for now, survival was the priority. As night deepened, they sat quietly together in the dimly lit warehouse. The alien girl hovered close, her energy casting soft patterns on the walls. David felt a strange mixture of awe and responsibility. He was no longer just an ordinary man. He was her protector, guide, and companion in a world full of dangers. They were only beginning to understand. Outside, the city remained restless, and somewhere beyond the shadows, their pursuers were undoubtedly searching. But for now, they had a moment of safety, a chance to plan, learn, and strengthen the bond that would carry them through the trials ahead. In that quiet warehouse, human and alien alike found a small but vital spark of hope, a promise that together they could face whatever the world or the unknown threw at them next. The next morning, David and the alien girl remained in the quiet of the abandoned warehouse, planning their next move. The city outside seemed calm, but David knew it was only a temporary lull. The facility's forces would not give up easily, and he feared that staying in one place for too long would draw unwanted attention. They needed help, someone familiar with the city, someone resourceful enough to guide them through its dangers. As if on cue, a soft knock echoed through the metal walls. David froze, his heart racing. "Who's there?" he called cautiously. The knock came again, this time followed by a familiar voice. "David, is that you?" The voice belonged to Maya, a friend he had known for years. She was a city engineer, clever, resourceful, and brave. David had trusted her before, but now, with the alien girl by his side, he had to be certain. He peeked through a gap and saw her standing outside, holding a small satchel. "Are you alone?" David asked quietly, keeping one eye on the alien girl. Maya shook her head. "I heard rumors about strange sightings near the old industrial district. I followed the trail and found you." David felt a wave of relief. She was cautious but willing to help. He opened the warehouse door slightly, letting her in. The alien girl hovered nearby, studying Maya with curiosity, her glowing eyes reflecting a mix of wonder and caution. Maya's gaze immediately shifted to the alien girl. Her eyes widened in shock, but she quickly composed herself. Is that real?" she whispered, hardly daring to believe what she was seeing. David nodded. "Yes, she's real and she needs our help. They're after her." Maya took a deep breath, then nodded firmly. "Then we help. We plan, but we need to move carefully. If anyone sees us together, they'll know where to find you." Together, they began strategizing. Maya suggested safe houses, escape routes, and contact points in the city. She had a network of people who could provide temporary shelter and resources, but she warned that trust was scarce. David explained the alien girl's abilities, careful to avoid exposing too much. Maya listened intently, her expression shifting between awe and determination. She was quick to understand the gravity of their situation. As they planned, the alien girl reached out, touching a map on the table. Her fingers glowed softly, tracing routes with precision, almost as if she could sense the safest paths. David watched in amazement as Maya observed her closely. "She's incredible," Maya murmured, recognizing the alien girl's intelligence and awareness. David nodded. "And she's counting on us. We have to be ready for anything." Their discussion was interrupted by a distant noise and echo of the city's restless energy. They all froze, listening intently. This could have been the wind, a stray animal, or a sign that their pursuers were near. David's mind raced. He realized that while Maya was a potential ally, the danger surrounding them was growing. Every decision, every step, had to be calculated. Stakes could be fatal. Despite the tension, a sense of hope blossomed. For the first time since the alien girl had been freed, they had someone human on their side. A resourceful, trusted friend who could help navigate a world that was dangerous, unfamiliar, and unpredictable. David looked at her glowing face and felt a surge of confidence. With Maya's help, they could plan, protect, and perhaps even turn the tables on those pursuing them. As they settled into their temporary safe zone, David understood the stakes more clearly. Allies were valuable, but trust had to be earned. The alien girl with her otherworldly intelligence, and Maya with her human ingenuity, created a balance of power and strategy. Together, they would face the challenges ahead: danger, betrayal, and the unknown with courage, skill, and the unbreakable bond forming between them. David, the alien girl, and Maya huddled in the dim light of the warehouse, the city's night stretching endlessly beyond the broken windows. For the first time since their escape, they were not running. They were thinking, planning, and preparing. David felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. He had never imagined that he would find himself at the center of something so dangerous, so extraordinary. Yet here he was, with two powerful allies, ready to fight back. Maya spread a map across the table, marking key locations of the facility's operations. "They're monitoring the city from multiple points," she said, pointing at blinking markers. "We can't just run forever. If we stay reactive, they'll corner us eventually. We need to take control, even if just for a moment." David nodded, realizing that she was right. Survival meant not just escaping, but creating opportunities, setting traps, and misleading their enemies. The alien girl hovered above the table, her energy pulsing in response to the maps and symbols. David noticed that she seemed to understand more than anyone else about the facility's strategies, almost as if she could sense the movements of their pursuers. He leaned closer, studying her eyes. She tilted her head as if asking him to trust her instincts. Without words, she communicated a plan, one that combined human ingenuity and her alien abilities. Maya glanced at David and asked, "Do you think it's too risky?" He hesitated. The plan involved sending a false signal, using the alien girl's energy to create decoys that would distract the drones and human operatives. It was dangerous, and any mistake could lead them straight into the facility's traps. But David knew that the risk was necessary. The alien girl's safety, and perhaps the safety of countless others, depended on them acting decisively. They began to prepare. David scavenged materials from the warehouse, metal sheets, wires, and old electronics to construct a device that could amplify the alien girl's energy pulses. Maya adjusted her plans, calculating the timing, distances, and escape routes with meticulous care. The alien girl practiced sending controlled waves of energy, creating shimmering illusions that danced across the warehouse walls. The room buzzed with anticipation, tension, and an odd sense of exhilaration. As the night deepened, David felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. They were not just planning a defensive move, they were striking back at forces far stronger and more organized than themselves. Every step had to be precise. Every action had to be coordinated. He glanced at the alien girl, her glowing form hovering silently. She was ready, focused, and willing to take the risk with him. Maya gave a final nod of confidence. Together, they were ready. The plan was simple, yet bold. First, the alien girl would generate multiple illusions, mimicking her form and creating false energy signals across the city. This would distract the facility's surveillance systems and drones, drawing them away from the real location of the team. While the pursuers were misled, David and Maya would guide her to a secondary safe house, carefully chosen to remain hidden until they could regroup. Timing was crucial. Even a second's miscalculation could spell disaster. David took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. The alien girl reached out, touching his arm with a faint pulse of energy. He understood. This was a silent promise of trust and cooperation. They were in this together, facing a dangerous and unpredictable enemy, yet united by purpose and courage. As the first light of dawn began to touch the edges of the city, they prepared to execute their plan. The night had been long, filled with fear, strategy, and preparation, but the real test was about to begin. The night had fallen once again, and the city's streets were quiet, almost unnaturally so. David, the alien girl, and Maya stood in the shadows of their temporary safe house, ready to carry out the plan they had meticulously prepared. The air was thick with anticipation, each of them aware that any mistake could lead to disaster. The alien girl's glow pulsed softly, a visual rhythm that matched David's racing heartbeat. David glanced at Maya, who nodded reassuringly. "It's now or never," she whispered. David took a deep breath and looked toward the alien girl. She hovered slightly above the ground, her eyes fixed on him, transmitting confidence and trust in a way words could not. Together, they moved toward the first stage of their plan, the creation of multiple energy decoys to distract the facility's drones and surveillance systems. The alien girl extended her hands, and shimmering pulses of light spread outward. The illusions began to take form, glowing duplicates of her hovering in different streets, moving in patterns that confused sensors and misled monitoring systems. David watched in awe as the decoys flickered and shifted, nearly indistinguishable from the real her. The drones, which had been tracking them relentlessly, veered toward the false signals, giving them precious seconds to move undetected. Maya whispered instructions to David, guiding him through the timing of each step. "Now, move toward the alley on the left," she instructed, pointing to a route that would take them closer to the secondary safe house. David nodded, gripping the alien girl's hand as they darted forward. Her energy illuminated the path, casting a soft glow on the walls and revealing obstacles before they could trip. Together, they moved with precision, each step synchronized, as if rehearsed 1,000 times. Suddenly, a drone appeared around the corner, its sensors detecting a faint anomaly. David froze for a split second, but the alien girl reacted immediately. She sent a pulse of energy toward the drone, creating a temporary shield that deflected its scanning beam. Sparks flew, and the drone wobbled in mid-air, before retreating, fooled by the decoys. David's heart pounded in his chest. The execution of their plan was working, but the tension was unbearable. One wrong move could unravel everything. As they navigated the twisting alleys and narrow streets, the alien girl's energy created subtle diversions, light flashes, moving shadows, and illusions that mimicked their presence. David marveled at her control and adaptability. Each diversion bought them time, each maneuver keeping the pursuers just out of reach. Maya's voice came through faintly from behind a temporary barrier, giving guidance and recalculating routes as the city's landscape shifted around them. They reached a small bridge spanning a quiet canal, one of the final checkpoints before reaching the secondary safe house. The alien girl paused, her glowing eyes scanning the area. David felt a surge of pride. Despite the danger and complexity, she remained calm and focused. He took a deep breath and followed her across the bridge, mindful of the gaps in the reflective water below. Every step was calculated, but the thrill of survival heightened their senses, making them acutely aware of every sound and shadow. Finally, they reached a nondescript building tucked between two larger structures. The alien girl hovered just inside, illuminating the entrance so David and Maya could follow safely. They stepped in, closing the door behind them. And for the first time that night, they could breathe without fear of immediate pursuit. The decoys had worked perfectly. The facility's forces were chasing illusions, leaving them momentarily untraced. Inside the safe house, David slumped against the wall, exhaustion and relief washing over him. The alien girl hovered nearby, glowing softly, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of pride and trust. Maya smiled, knowing that the first stage of their plan had succeeded. But even in that moment of triumph, David understood that this was only the beginning. The facility would regroup, more determined than ever, and the real challenges were still ahead. As dawn began to break over the city, the trio realized one thing. For the first time, they were not just reacting, they were taking control. The alien girl's power, combined with human ingenuity and courage, had allowed them to strike back. And now, more than ever, they were ready to face whatever dangers awaited together. The city streets were bathed in the pale light of early morning, yet danger was far from over. David, the alien girl, and Maya had just completed the first phase of their plan, but the facility was already regrouping. Somewhere in the distance, the low hum of mechanical drones signaled that their pursuers were not far behind. David felt the familiar tension coil in his chest. There would be no more quiet moments. They were about to face the first real confrontation. They moved cautiously from the secondary safe house, keeping close to the shadows. The alien girl hovered slightly above the ground, her energy pulsing faintly, reflecting her alertness. Every noise made her glance toward its source, her glowing eyes tracking movement faster than David could comprehend. He could feel her awareness stretching beyond his own senses, yet he knew that human judgment, intuition, and quick thinking would still be crucial in the moments to come. As they turned a corner, a group of facility operatives emerged from an alley. Clad in dark uniforms and carrying advanced equipment, they moved with precision and authority. David froze, recognizing that these were not drones. They were humans trained to capture, control, and contain. His pulse quickened. He knew this encounter would be dangerous. One misstep could expose them, and the consequences could be catastrophic. The alien girl immediately reacted, her glow intensified, casting an ethereal light on the concrete walls. She extended her hands, sending out a wave of energy that created a barrier between them and the operatives. Sparks danced in the air, illuminating the operatives' startled faces. David realized that her power was not just defensive. It was overwhelming, capable of forcing hesitation in the most disciplined humans. Yet she relied on him to guide their movements strategically. David took a deep breath and signaled for Maya to move with him. "Stick close," he whispered. They navigated the narrow streets, using the alien girl's energy to misdirect and confuse the operatives. Shadows flickered, walls seemed to shift, and illusions of movement appeared where there was none. The human operatives hesitated, their training challenged by phenomena they could neither predict nor fully understand. One operative fired a small device, attempting to disable the alien girl's energy field. David reacted instinctively, pushing her out of the device's path. She responded by unleashing a controlled pulse that sent the attackers staggering backward, shielding them both. David marveled at the precision of her power. She had learned quickly, combining instinct with an almost tactical intelligence that allowed them to survive in this high-stakes confrontation. The trio pressed forward, ducking through side alleys and slipping past shadowed corners. Every moment required complete coordination. David guided, Maya calculated, and the alien girl protected and illuminated the path. They moved as a single unit, responding instantly to threats, avoiding traps, and maintaining their escape, while simultaneously testing the limits of their pursuers. Finally, they reached a small, open plaza. The operatives regrouped, momentarily uncertain how to proceed against a target that was half human, half a known force. David realized they had created just enough distance to catch their breath. But the confrontation had proved one thing. Their enemies were persistent, intelligent, and adaptive. The alien girl's power was extraordinary, but it was their combined skills and trust that allowed them to survive. As the trio paused, the alien girl hovered close to David, her energy calming slightly. They had faced the first real threat from human operatives and survived. Yet the encounter left a lingering truth. Their journey would only grow more dangerous. Every decision, every move, would be tested in ways they could not yet foresee. But one thing was clear. Together, human ingenuity and alien power formed a bond strong enough to challenge even the most formidable adversaries. After surviving their first real confrontation with the facility's operatives, David, the alien girl, and Maya knew the city was no longer safe. Every street, every corner could hide surveillance, drones, or agents seeking to recapture them. They needed a place where the alien girl could be free without constant fear of pursuit. David suggested heading toward the outskirts of the city, toward the dense wilderness that stretched beyond the urban sprawl. The journey was tense. The alien girl hovered slightly above the ground, energy shimmering softly to light the path while remaining subtle enough to avoid detection. David and Maya followed closely, moving through empty alleys and abandoned roads that led to the city's edge. Every shadow, every rustle of leaves made David's pulse quicken, but he knew they had to remain calm. Panic would only give their pursuers an advantage. As they entered the edge of the wilderness, the city's noise faded. The sounds of distant traffic were replaced by rustling trees, chirping insects, and the occasional call of a nocturnal animal. The alien girl's eyes widened in wonder. She had never seen a forest before, and everything, the towering trees, the soft moss underfoot, the cool night air, was new and fascinating. She reached out with a glowing hand to touch a tree trunk, and the bark seemed to react slightly to her energy, shimmering faintly where her fingers brushed it. David smiled at her curiosity but remained vigilant. "It's beautiful, but stay close," he warned. Even in the wilderness, they were not entirely safe. Tracking systems could extend beyond the city. The facility had powerful technology designed to locate energy signatures like hers. They moved carefully, using natural cover, following winding paths, and ducking behind rocks and bushes to avoid being spotted from above. Maya, familiar with survival techniques, guided them deeper into the forest. She pointed out natural landmarks, hidden paths, and areas where they could temporarily hide if drones or agents appeared. David noticed how she and the alien girl were beginning to communicate silently, gestures, glows, and energy pulses forming an unspoken language. He realized that their team was evolving into something stronger, a fusion of human skill and alien intuition that made them highly adaptable. Hours passed as they moved deeper into the wilderness. The alien girl's energy created soft lights that mimicked fireflies, allowing them to see without attracting attention. They crossed small streams, climbed over fallen logs, and navigated steep terrain. David felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Each step further from the city increased their safety. Yet every moment also reminded him that their pursuers would not give up easily. They finally reached a secluded area surrounded by thick trees and rocky outcrops. It was perfect for a temporary hideout. The alien girl hovered in the center, her glow illuminating the natural clearing in a soft, comforting light. David and Maya quickly set up makeshift barriers, using fallen branches, rocks, and natural foliage to obscure the area from aerial surveillance. For the first time since leaving the facility, they felt a small measure of relief. Sitting quietly, David looked at the alien girl. "You're safe here for now," he said softly. She floated closer, her eyes meeting his, and a gentle hum of gratitude passed between them. They had escaped the city, outmaneuvered the operatives, and found a moment of peace in a world untouched by human interference. Yet David knew their journey was far from over. The wilderness offered freedom, but also challenges: harsh terrain, unpredictable weather, and the constant threat of discovery. As they settled into the clearing, the trio understood an important truth. Survival depended not only on hiding, but on learning, adapting, and trusting one another completely. Human ingenuity, alien power, and careful planning had brought them this far. But the challenges ahead would test their limits in ways they had not yet imagined. And in that quiet wilderness, a fragile hope began to grow. A hope that together, they could overcome the dangers waiting in the unknown world beyond the city. The forest seemed calm under the moonlight, yet David knew that nature could be as dangerous as the facility's operatives. As they moved further into the wilderness, the alien girl's glowing presence illuminated the path, casting dancing light across the trees. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the snapping of twigs, the distant call of nocturnal animals, kept David alert. He realized that even in this temporary sanctuary, survival depended on vigilance. The alien girl was fascinated by her surroundings. She reached out to touch a cluster of glowing mushrooms, and they shimmered faintly where her fingers brushed them. She tilted her head, watching fireflies flicker through the trees, and moved to kneel by a small stream. David watched her in awe, noticing how her energy interacted with the environment in subtle but remarkable ways. She could make plants shimmer, stones vibrate softly, and water ripple in rhythmic patterns, all without exerting much effort. Their sense of calm was shattered when a pack of wild animals, startled by their movement, emerged from the shadows. Wolves, with eyes glinting in the darkness, circled the clearing. David's pulse quickened, and he instinctively stepped in front of the alien girl. She hovered slightly higher, her glowing form radiating a warm, protective light. David whispered, "Stay calm. Don't make sudden movements." He knew the slightest panic could provoke an attack. The alien girl raised her hands, sending out gentle pulses of energy. The wolves stopped, ears perked, and growls faded into cautious whines. David realized that her power was not merely destructive, it could manipulate natural behavior, pacifying even wild predators. He marveled at how she combined instinct and control, understanding both danger and defense in ways humans could never manage alone. After the wolves retreated into the trees, David guided the alien girl deeper into the forest. They came across a dense thicket that required her to use her abilities to create a path. Branches bent, leaves shimmered, and the energy she emitted illuminated a narrow passage. David followed, careful not to trip over roots or uneven terrain. He noticed her concentration, the way her eyes narrowed. Her hands moved precisely, and her glow adjusted to the environment. Every small gesture revealed mastery over a power he barely understood. Hours passed, and the forest tested them in ways David had not anticipated. A sudden downpour forced them to seek shelter beneath the dense canopy of trees. The alien girl hovered effortlessly, her glow illuminating the space, while David and Maya pressed close together, keeping warm and dry. Streams of water swirled around them, making paths slippery and treacherous. Yet, the alien girl's energy stabilized the ground slightly, preventing dangerous slips. David realized that these trials in the wilderness were as crucial as evading the facility. They were learning to work as a team, balancing human ingenuity with alien power. He observed how she responded to every challenge, calm, precise, and effective. Her curiosity combined with caution, her strength tempered by empathy. He felt a growing sense of trust, not just in her abilities, but in their ability to face unknown dangers together. By dawn, the trio had moved to a higher clearing, overlooking the forest below. Exhausted but safe for the moment, David felt a mixture of relief and pride. They had faced nature itself, tested limits, and strengthened their bond. The alien girl hovered beside him, her glow soft and steady, as if acknowledging their achievement. They had survived the first trials of the wilderness, but David knew more dangers awaited both from the world outside and from the facility that would not rest until she was captured. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the trees, the trio prepared for the next stage of their journey. Survival in the wilderness required courage, adaptability, and trust. And for David, the alien girl, and Maya, each challenge brought them closer together, teaching lessons that would be vital in the battles and adventures still to come. The forest was alive with sounds as David, the alien girl, and Maya moved cautiously through the dense undergrowth. Birds chirped in the distance, leaves rustled underfoot, and the faint wind carried the scent of earth and foliage. For a brief moment, the wilderness seemed a safe haven, but David knew better danger could appear from anywhere, human or otherwise. He tightened his grip on the alien girl's hand, alert to the smallest movement. A sudden snap of a branch made them all freeze. Shadows shifted between the trees, and David felt a spike of tension. From the darkness emerged a group of humans, dressed in dark tactical gear. Unlike the facility operatives, these people seemed more like Scout Silent, calculating and armed with tools that could detect the alien girl's energy signature. David's stomach churned. They had stumbled into another threat, one that could either help or harm them. The alien girl hovered slightly above the ground, energy pulsing softly in warning. She tilted her head, observing the newcomers, as if trying to understand their intentions. David whispered to Maya, "Stay calm. We need to gauge them first." Maya nodded, her eyes narrowing as she assessed the group. The humans moved with careful precision, scanning the area, but they hadn't yet realized the full presence of the alien girl. One of the figures stepped forward cautiously. "We're not here to fight," yet he said in a calm, measured tone. David felt a flicker of relief, but didn't let his guard down. "Who are you?" he demanded. The man raised his hand slightly, showing no weapons aimed directly at them. "We know about her," he explained, "and we want to help, but we're not from the facility. There are others, more powerful, who want her captured for reasons you don't yet understand. If you want to survive, you'll need allies." David's mind raced. Could they trust these strangers? The alien girl hovered closer, energy glowing slightly stronger, sensing his hesitation. David realized that her instincts were telling him something important. These humans were different. They were cautious, measured, and aware of the risks, much like themselves. He decided to take the chance. "All right," he said slowly. "We'll listen, but one wrong move, and we're leaving." The man nodded, his eyes serious. "Understood. We have knowledge of safe routes, hidden shelters, and the facility's monitoring patterns. We can guide you, but only if we work together." Maya stepped forward, examining the maps and terrain the strangers described. David noticed the alien girl's glowing form react subtly, as if absorbing the information, storing it for future use. The bond between human and alien was deepening, and now it extended to include these potential allies. As they moved with the new group, the tension remained high. Every step required caution. Every sound was analyzed for potential threats. The alien girl occasionally hovered higher, scanning the trees, while David and Maya coordinated with the strangers to avoid traps and detection. They were learning to navigate a world where danger came from both seen and unseen sources, relying on trust, instincts, and teamwork to survive. By the time they reached a small clearing, David understood something crucial. Alliances were a double-edged sword. These new humans could provide protection and knowledge, but betrayal was always possible. The alien girl's energy pulsed softly, reassuring him that together they had a chance, but they had to remain vigilant. As the sun began to rise through the canopy, David felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just fugitives. They were a team, learning to navigate threats, build trust, and survive in a world that was more dangerous and complex than anything they had ever imagined. And somewhere in the shadows, the facility was already planning its next move. The early morning light filtered through the trees as David, the alien girl, Maya, and their unexpected allies gathered in a small clearing. The forest had become their temporary command center, a place where strategy could be planned away from prying eyes. The atmosphere was tense, charged with anticipation. Every member of the group understood that this was more than survival. They were about to take the first step in striking back against the facility. David spread out a rough map on a flat rock, marking the facility's known checkpoints, patrol patterns, and drone routes. Maya and the strangers added notes in the margins, detailing hidden trails, vantage points, and areas where surveillance was weaker. The alien girl hovered above the map, glowing softly as her energy pulsed along the lines and symbols. David could see her processing the information, sensing weaknesses and opportunities far faster than any human could. "We can't just wait for them to come to us," David said, voice steady but serious. "We need to act first. We need to mislead them, distract them, and reclaim some control. The alien girl's glow intensified, a silent agreement to his words. She had learned quickly. Her powers were not just for defense, but for strategy, for creating opportunities where none seemed possible. The plan was complex but elegant. First, the alien girl would generate multiple energy decoys at different locations, similar to their first diversion, but this time more coordinated and spread across several areas simultaneously. The facilities, drones, and operatives would be drawn to these illusions, leaving blind spots in the city and outskirts. David, Maya, and their allies would use those blind spots to maneuver, gather intelligence, and potentially sabotage key equipment without being detected. David looked at Maya. "We need precision. Timing is everything." She nodded, reviewing the details. "If we do this correctly, we can confuse them long enough to move into positions they'd never expect. We need to stay one step ahead or it's over." David felt the weight of her words. Every move they made could change the outcome, not just for them but for the alien girl and the countless secrets she carried. The alien girl floated higher, sending a pulse of energy across the surrounding trees. Tiny sparks illuminated the forest, creating subtle diversions for any drones that might be scanning above. David realized her abilities had grown since their last encounter. She was learning to control her power with precision, shaping it to fit their tactical needs. The humans around them watched in awe, silently impressed by her adaptability and intelligence. As the team split into their respective positions, David felt a surge of adrenaline. The first real offensive move against the facility was about to begin. Every person, every pulse of energy, every carefully chosen path had to synchronize perfectly. The forest, once a sanctuary, had become a battlefield of strategy and cunning. The alien girl's energy created illusions of movement, drawing attention away from their actual locations, while David and Maya guided the team with meticulous care. Minutes felt like hours as they waited for the operation to unfold. Then, as the decoys activated and the facility's forces responded, chaos began to ripple through the enemy's ranks. Drones veered off course. Operatives moved in the wrong direction. Communication lines were disrupted by subtle interference caused by the alien girl's energy pulses. David's plan was working, but only if everyone remained focused. By the time the sun fully rose, the team had successfully executed their first counter-strategy. They had gained valuable intelligence, misled their pursuers, and demonstrated that they were capable of taking the initiative. David looked at the alien girl, her glow dimming slightly as she hovered beside him. "We did it," he whispered, a mixture of relief and pride in his voice. Yet even in victory, David knew the danger was far from over. The facility would adapt, regroup, and return stronger. But for the first time, they had proven that human ingenuity, alien power, and teamwork could challenge even the most formidable foes. The journey ahead would be perilous, but they were ready together. The night had fallen again, casting long shadows across the forest as David, the alien girl Maya, and their human allies prepared for the first direct sabotage of the facility. The success of their previous counter-strategy had bought them time, but David knew it would not last. The facility's operatives were relentless, and their technology advanced. To gain a true advantage, they needed to strike at the heart of the enemy's power. David spread the maps and diagrams he had gathered over the last few days. "This is it," he whispered, pointing to a series of structures on the outskirts of the facility. "These are supply depots and communication hubs. If we can disable them, even temporarily, it will slow their operations and give us leverage." Maya nodded, her mind racing through the logistics. "We can reach them under the cover of night, using the terrain and the alien girl's abilities to remain undetected." The alien girl hovered nearby, energy pulsing in response to David's plans. She seemed to understand every word, every intention, even without language. Her glow intensified as she reached out toward the diagrams, sending faint pulses across the lines, as if memorizing the layout. David marveled at her intelligence. Her understanding of complex human systems was instantaneous, and her energy could manipulate and disrupt technology in ways humans could not. They moved carefully through the forest, avoiding patrol routes and camera sensors. David followed the alien girl's lead, her glowing form illuminating safe paths while remaining subtle enough to avoid detection. Maya coordinated with the human allies, using whispered instructions and hand signals to guide their movements. Every step required precision. A single misstep could alert the facility to their presence. Reaching the first target, a small communication hub, David gestured for the alien girl to act. She extended her hands, sending a controlled pulse of energy toward the equipment. Sparks flew, and the lights on the panels flickered before dimming completely. David watched in awe as her power disrupted the complex circuits without causing permanent damage. A perfect balance of sabotage and preservation. The hub was temporarily offline, and the facility's ability to coordinate its forces was compromised. Moving quickly, the team targeted another structure, a supply depot filled with essential resources for the operatives. The alien girl hovered above, her energy interacting with locks, alarms, and sensors. With a precise pulse, doors clicked open silently, and critical equipment was rendered inoperative. David and Maya coordinated the human allies, ensuring that no one was injured and that their sabotage remained covert. Every action was calculated, efficient, and executed flawlessly. As they retreated into the shadows, David felt a surge of adrenaline and pride. The facility had been disrupted, if only temporarily, and the alien girl's abilities had proven invaluable. Yet he also knew that the facility would respond, likely with increased force and vigilance. Ace Kazde had not gone unnoticed. Somewhere in the darkness, sensors would detect anomalies, and the pursuit would intensify. By the time they returned to their hidden clearing in the forest, the group was exhausted, but elated. The alien girl floated beside David, her glow softening in quiet satisfaction. Kea whispered, "We've made a real impact tonight, but this is just the beginning. They'll come back stronger, smarter, and more prepared." David nodded, realizing the truth of her words. Every victory would be temporary, every escape a lesson in strategy, trust, and adaptability. As the team settled for the night, David felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had taken the first step in turning the tables, and the alien girl had begun to understand the power of human-alien collaboration. The forest offered them safety, but the battle against the facility was far from over. Together, they were no longer just fugitives. They were a force capable of challenging an enemy that had once seemed unstoppable. Dawn was breaking over the forest, casting soft, golden light through the thick canopy. David, the alien girl, Maya, and their allies sat in the clearing, exhausted but alive. The sabotage had been successful, the facility's systems disrupted, and for the first time in days, they felt a small sense of accomplishment. Yet, beneath that fragile relief, David could feel the weight of impending danger pressing closer. The alien girl hovered silently, her glow dim and steady, reflecting both her weariness and her alertness. David watched her, realizing that her powers were growing stronger with every encounter, but so too were the stakes. The facility would not simply retreat. Their operatives were relentless, adaptable, and likely already regrouping for a counterattack. Every victory they achieved was temporary, and every decision from this point forward could be their most critical. Maya spoke softly, her voice filled with concern. "We need to plan our next move carefully. They'll be looking for patterns, trying to predict our actions. If we stay in one place too long, we risk everything." David nodded. He understood that the forest offered only a temporary sanctuary, a brief respite before the next confrontation. They needed to remain vigilant, adaptive, and united. Suddenly, a faint hum filled the clearing, subtle but unmistakable. The alien girl stiffened, hovering higher and sending a pulse of energy toward the perimeter. David's heart raced. "What is it?" he whispered. Her eyes flickered, scanning the forest with unnatural precision. Then he saw a shadow moving quickly through the trees, almost imperceptible at first, but unmistakably there. They were not alone. From the shadows emerged a figure unlike any they had faced before. Tall, cloaked in dark, reflective armor, and carrying equipment that pulsed with energy similar to the alien girl's, the newcomer moved with inhuman grace. David felt a chill run down his spine. This was no ordinary operative. This was someone or something entirely different. The alien girl's glow intensified, her energy reacting instinctively to the presence of the unknown threat. The figure spoke, voice resonating unnaturally through the forest. "I've been sent to retrieve her. You cannot hide." David realized immediately that this confrontation would test everything they had learned. The alien girl, despite her power, had never faced a being like this. Maya whispered urgently. "We need to move. Now. Now." But the path was unclear. The figure blocked the most direct escape routes, and its energy signature suggested abilities they had yet to encounter. David felt a surge of determination. He gripped the alien girl's hand, feeling her pulse of energy synchronize with his own. "We'll get through this," he whispered. The alien girl responded with a glowing nod, her eyes locked on the figure. They were ready to confront whatever came next, but uncertainty loomed. Every instinct screamed that this battle would be unlike any before, that their choices in the coming moments would shape not just their survival, but the fate of the alien girl and the secrets she carried. As the figure advanced, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Shadows lengthened, the wind stilled, and even the birds were silent. David, Maya, and the alien girl prepared themselves for a confrontation that could decide everything. And just as the first pulse of energy from the cloaked figure surged toward them, the scene cut to darkness. The question hung in the air. Would they survive this encounter, or would the facility finally reclaim the alien girl? The answers remained unknown, leaving a chilling sense of suspense and a promise that the next chapter of their journey would be more dangerous, more thrilling, and more unpredictable than anything they had faced before.